Hello and welcome. Today's project is all about night anxiety, why you feel anxious when you're about to go to bed at night, and why you wake up in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., feeling extremely anxious, shortness of breath. You wake up, maybe you have night terrors, and what you can do about it. What can you do before bed to lessen this and to prepare yourself for the next day? And so, by the evening, say around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, I would begin to feel this was in the past when I used to suffer from anxiety. I would begin to feel more calm and relaxed because I would feel emotionally drained. I would spend most of the day dealing with health anxiety, dealing with the challenges going on up here, engaging in coping strategies all day, trying to gain control over this chaos I was in. And then by the evenings, and most people who suffer from anxiety experience this, they feel so emotionally drained that they finally have a moment of relaxation because they're so drained, and they feel also relaxed because they're in their safe zone. So I used to, in that evening period around 6 to 9 p.m., I would feel good. I'd feel like I got things somewhat under control, but really I was engaging in coping strategies, right? My family was just around, and they made me feel safe. And this was before Maggie and I were together, or before we got together. And this was a good time, but it was when my family went to bed, I started to feel anxious. By 9 p.m., I started to feel more anxious because I was alone. And when you're lying in bed and you're alone, it's just you and your own thoughts, right? So, but before this, I would be watching TV. I would I would be around my family. I'd be Googling symptoms constantly. I would be eating late. I would always be snacking before bed, constantly eating. And so I was a very dependent guy. I was dependent upon these external strategies to mask the pain I was in. I was using TV to not confront the negative thoughts that were below the surface. I would talk to my family and talk to them about my symptoms so that I would get that temporary fix. But when they're not around, it would just be me and my own thoughts. And then the feelings would come up, and then I would have to wake my family up to talk to them again. So it was this constant dependency on these coping strategies that kept me and my anxiety alive, right? Like it kept me from confronting the things that were underneath the surface, the truths, because that's what was happening. My anxiety was basically telling me, Brad, there are these underlying issues, these challenges that you're not confronting, and I'm going to keep the anxiety system alive until you figure it out. Because I wasn't understanding what was going on, because I would be so obsessed over my symptoms, and that would leave me in the domain of unknown territory, because I don't know what these symptoms are, and I'm assuming it's cancer, I'm assuming it's a disease, but I'm not really sure. So an anxiety sufferer is constantly trying to find the answers, the solutions, right? And thus they're obsessing over their symptoms, and that obsession is continuously looping their anxiety. And so what happens when you're lying in bed alone in the dark? The monsters come out, right? You hear that saying all the time, the monsters come out in the dark. But what do you mean by monsters coming out? Well, what happens when you're sitting alone with yourself? You want to pick up your phone and go on social media. You want to go watch TV, play video games, eat junk food. You want to go smoke that cigarette. You want to go do those drugs. But why? Because facing the truth, facing the demons that you have, the past traumas that bubble up underneath the surface is not pleasant. So it's easier to mask it and repress it. But when you're lying in bed at night, everything bubbles up and you can't seem to go to sleep. There's just too much chaos. There's too many unresolved issues and emotional events that you haven't dealt with that are underneath the surface. And so what happens at 2 a.m.? Why do you wake up at 2 a.m. in panic mode? Because that's what would happen to me. At 2 a.m., I would wake up gasping for breath, and then I would go wake up my family, and I was so terrified of going back to bed because it was this feeling of dying. I like, if I go back to bed, I think I'm going to die in my sleep because I can't even get enough oxygen in my lungs. And so I would stay up at night and I would talk to my family and keep them up at night. So why would I wake up at 2 a.m.? Well, the unconscious mind, your unconscious mind is active mostly at night, right? It's like, it's Mother Nature's way of it's solving problems, right? Why do we dream, right? Partly because we solve problems when we dream. There are things that we haven't solved yet, and so dreaming is sort of a way of resolving those problems and figuring out the world in this abstract way. And when you wake up at 2 a.m., it's because there are terrors, there are traumas, there are unresolved issues that you haven't confronted yet and solved, so they're haunting you at night, and those monsters are making themselves known. And our unconscious mind, it's there to protect us, right? If we have a lot of unresolved baggage, our unconscious is going to let us know that's where the baggage is it's in our unconscious mind. That's why you hear all the time people who meditate, people who write in journals and confront their past traumas, get over them because they're solving those traumas. They're solving those past highly emotional memories. And so when you wake up at 2 a.m., those memories are making themselves known in the middle of the night. And so, and that's because our unconscious is most vulnerable at nighttime, right? So what do you do before bed that will help lessen this night anxiety? Well, like I was saying before I went to bed, being alone with myself was uncomfortable for me. So what I would do when I was going through my anxiety recovery was I would spend an hour before bed without engaging in negative coping strategies. Well, I don't even need to put the negative before the coping, because coping strategies is just negative in and of itself, right? Coping strategies is not good. It keeps you dependent. So an hour before bed, what do? Well, you avoid TV, you avoid phones, social media, YouTube, video games, eating junk foods before bed. You avoid these things. And what you do instead is you engage in relaxation exercises and strategies. So maybe taking a hot bath with Epsom salts and lighting some incense. Maybe you read a book, or maybe you're just sitting with yourself in the dark. Turn the lights down, right? Because that increases your melatonin, which means you're going to fall asleep easier. Also, have a calming tea. Have a chamomile tea, peppermint tea, something that relaxes you and soothes you. Write in a journal. Write down everything that's on your mind. Any negative thing that comes to your mind, write it down. This is a release exercise. It releases all that baggage, all that chaos that's going on in here, puts it onto paper, and it's a releasing strategy. Also, write a to-do list. What are you doing tomorrow? Because that's really important. If you write a to-do list and say, I want to wake up at this time, I want to have breakfast at this time, I want to leave work at this time, or I want to get the kids ready for school at this time, I want to have my lunch break at this time, I want to meditate at this time, I want to go to the store, I need to do this, I need to grab this. Write it all down, write a to-do list so that it gets it all out of here. Because don't you find that when you're about to go to sleep, you remember things? Oh, I got to do this tomorrow. How did I forget about that? It's because your unconscious mind is sort of opening itself up. It's like when you spend that time alone, you're just letting everything from underneath the surface just come about. And that's why it's so easy to remember things right before bed. And so if you spend that 5-10 minutes before you go to sleep, sitting down with a piece of paper, writing out what you need to do, it'll help you ease yourself into sleep, and you won't have those to-do lists popping up in your mind, right? And so writing it down helps you add order. And that's the thing, you're adding order to the chaos, right? Because anxiety sufferers are in chaos. There's not enough order. So adding order to the chaos and certainty is really important. So you can make a lot of your life certain by preparation. So tomorrow, if you are anxious about tomorrow because you're anxious about whether you're going to have a panic attack, whether you're going to get your stuff done tomorrow, whether you're going to be late tomorrow, whether you're going to faint tomorrow, whatever it is, maybe you got a doctor's appointment tomorrow and it's making you nervous, you can add certainty to that outcome by journaling, doing these things I've been telling you. But also, if you engage in meditations before bed, you can begin to manifest what you want to happen tomorrow, right? So if you sit with yourself and you visualize how you want the day to go, you're telling your unconscious mind, this is what Brad wants. This is what you want to manifest. And you're most likely going to manifest it because your unconscious mind recognizes and understands imagery and emotions the most, right? So if you wake up in panic at 2 a.m., what do? Well, I recommend you sit up in bed. You don't go into another room and disturb your family and try and get reassurance from your spouse or your loved one, right? I recommend you sit up, you lay in bed, and I recommend you practice acceptance, this acceptance strategy. So what it is you lie in bed and you accept what you feel. If it kills me, let it kill me. So what? I'm just going to sit with these feelings. These feelings are uncomfortable. I'm just going to sit with them. I'm going to trust my body. And I got so angry at the fact that I was suffering from anxiety so deeply that I woke up in the middle of the night anxious, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna lie here and I'm just gonna accept what I feel, and if it kills me, I had enough of this. I was so angry that this acceptance strategy worked for me, because I found that when I would sit and I would be mindful and not attach those labels to those symptoms and feelings, my body would ease itself into sleep so quickly. I couldn't believe it. So when you do wake up, practice this. Just sit with yourself. Or maybe you want to put on a podcast of your mentor. Maybe you want to put on this video in the middle of the night. Maybe you put on the Anxiety Project podcast in the middle of the night. And then my voice would, and my techniques and what I talk about adds comfort to you, and thus it eases you back into sleep. Or maybe you put on some binaural beats, and that the soothing sound of those beats pushes you and eases you into a sleep. But I don't recommend getting up and engaging in coping strategies, turning on the TV, eating food in the middle of the night, and not going on your phone, especially that. So practice this, and I hope this video helps you with nighttime anxiety. I suffered from it, and I practiced all of these techniques that I mentioned here, and it helped me add order because I was very chaotic, and there was a lot going on in here. There was a lot of trauma in here, and these strategies helped me be more independent, and when I would not rely on these coping strategies at night, I started to feel more confident in myself that I could handle this nighttime anxiety, and I could actually be alone with myself. And that's where I'm going to leave you on today's video. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Leave a comment below if I missed a strategy that helps you with your nighttime anxiety, and please leave a like as well. And I'll see you on the next podcast or video. Do not let anxiety define who you are. Bye for now. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and that bell so that whenever a new video of mine appears, you will be one of the first to know. Namaste.